if you knew you were enough? What would your life look like? What would love look like? This is the Enough Factor broadcast, where we're redefining what makes you enough in life and in love. Now here's your host, Suzette. Hello everybody, it's your life coach, your relationship solutionist, Suzette Virnon, and welcome to the Enough Factor podcast. I am so glad that out of all the podcasts that you could be listening to, you decided to listen to mine. And I never get tired of saying that because I really mean it. There are like thousands, probably millions of podcasts out there about relationships and life and whatever your favorite flavor is, but something about mine drew you. And for some of you, you keep right on coming. And that's why I keep right on showing up every week, endeavoring to help you to become 100% sure that you're enough. And even more importantly, that you know why, right? And if you are new, the way that this podcast delivers is by amplifying 3 critical factors of enoughness. They are your voice, your value, and your vision. Because when those are operating at their optimum, I had to get a little tongue-tied, at their optimum, then you tend to have a more fulfilling and satisfying experience of life and relationships. But when either of those factors are compromised, it's very, very, very difficult. And the opposite is true. You feel unfulfilled. You feel discontented. And you wonder, am I enough? And I'm hoping that by sharing these insights with you, that it'll help you to come more clear about something that I know for sure. You were born enough, you are enough, and you always will be enough. We just got to make sure that you know it, right? I've subscribed to Essence magazine. First of all, because I just love their articles. I find them interesting and uplifting for the most part. But sometimes an article comes through that makes me sad. And one of those was hearing about Anthony Anderson and his wife, Alvina, calling it quits after 22 years of marriage. And of course, not too long ago, it was Megan Good and Devon Franklin. And you start thinking, or at least I start thinking to myself, what was it that made their marriage end? And how can I make sure that I don't make the same mistake? Right? What is it that causes some marriages to make it till death us do part while others break up? And I think about that. Yes, this relationship solutionist thinks about that. And I'm glad that I do, because it keeps me on my toes. It keeps me involved in keeping my relationship with my husband safe for both of us and satisfying. And what I loved about the Essence article, and I'll have it in the show notes for you to read it for yourself, is they did a chronology of Anthony and Alvina's love journey. And I loved it because I saw some things that I know for me would be a big warning sign that my relationship, first of all, with myself, was in trouble, which would make my relationship with my husband in jeopardy. The first thing I saw, Anthony is quoted as saying, "She's always been a constant pillar for me." The next pivotal point I found in their journey was she gave up her career to raise the kids and to support his career. And again, in his words, that's what she does. And he punctuated it by saying, I applaud her for putting her career and her life on hold. The third thing I saw, he says of her, I have to thank her for her strength, right? 3 red flags that society would praise her for and say, what a great wife, what a great woman, what a great partner. Wow. To any of you who are in a relationship, recovering from a relationship, want to be in a relationship, what part of you is being put on hold? Emotional, spiritual, mental. What has gotten so heavy that the cost to you is your joy, your life, your worth? Now, as I said earlier, when 3 critical factors of enoughness are in peril, it really leads to detriment. So let me preface this by saying, I don't know Anthony and Alvina. I'm just using this as a teachable moment. So no, I'm not bad-mouthing. I'm not putting words in their mouths. I'm just taking what I've read and its relevance as a warning, especially to those of you that tend to lose yourself in relationships, or to those that think that love means you're supposed to stick and stay and ride or die to your own peril, or that love means you put somebody else's well-being above your own and at the expense of yourself. You are who I'm talking to. If you're happily married, not talking to you. If you feel secure in who you are, I'm not talking to you. But if you know of somebody who's struggling, this might be a good episode for you to share with them. The first thing I saw when it came to her voice, everything was about him. She was a constant pillar for him. He had an experience of her that putting her career and her life on hold, putting herself on the side to support other people or him was what she does. And when he was being accused of something, she was his rock, right? But when you're in a relationship that requires you to do these things, you lose yourself if you're doing them at your own expense. And it seemed like it was to her own detriment. What about her? Was anybody listening to her voice? And your voice isn't necessarily audible. Sometimes your voice is the sigh. Y'all know what I mean. There's always something going on, and your spouse is always busy. There's always drama. There's always somebody needing you. Losing your voice is that sigh of your soul wishing you could catch a breath, catch a break. That sigh that says, I'm tired. Is there anybody to listen to me? My silent frustration, my loneliness, my fears. Is anybody listening to my silent screams? Is anybody listening to that voice inside of me that says, I matter too? Don't I matter too? Can't what's going on with me be important for a change? Then I thought about her value. That snippet of the conversation that Anthony Anderson had, it said, and that's what she does. And when you read more of it, you realize when he says, I applaud her. Now, in a patriarchal society, and yes, I'm going to deal with it, because a lot of the reasons why women are suffering, trying to figure out how to reckon their enoughness with a society that says, yeah, you are, but don't be too enough, right? How does she reckon her value when men have been raised, and it's regardless of their color, that men have been raised to see women as less than them? Even in the 21st century, where it's in the fabric, in the soil, in the air of how men and women are raised and regarded, where a man is okay with his wife suffering. He's okay with her putting her life on hold. He's okay with her being the strong one for him. He's okay. And he takes it for granted. That's what she's supposed to do. And I applaud her for doing it. And then there's her vision. She had a career. She had something meaningful to her that she sacrificed for him. So that means she gave up her vision for probably a definition of that's what a good woman, a good wife does. Being a homemaker is a tough job. And for those that have the grace to do that, more power to you. But for some women, it's something they do because they feel like they have to, not because they want to. Now, I've been that woman. And some of you that are listening, that are divorced now, you know you've been that woman too. And maybe some of you that are married listening, you feel like that woman. And I'm not saying that divorce is the answer. I am saying that at some point, your true self is going to come collecting. It might not be now, but at some point, the part of you that has been neglected by you will force your hand, because she's the one that said yes to losing her voice, to being devalued, and to giving up her vision in exchange for the vision that her husband had. She gave it up. I hope that my bringing this to the forefront will help you to pay attention to the definitions you've adopted that aren't right for you. And listen to those sighs and those silent screams and the frustration. You see, I've learned that your authentic voice might be silenced by the euphoria you get from being in a relationship. Right? And forgetting all those, oh, thank you, babies, or the flowers, or the shout outs. This is my wife, y'all. This is my woman, y'all. That might make you feel really, really good to get kudos from your man, from society, and all those good woman attagirls. But one day, you're going to reach your saturation point. So it's best to set at the top of your relationship goals one where self-honor and honesty are most important. To your integrity, hold fast, because it's going to come and going to call you in question if you are not being honest and true in how you're handling yourself. That's why it's imperative for me as a coach that I redirect you from the dark side, and the dark side is losing yourself, losing your voice, your value, and your vision. Self-sacrifice is not a skill that works in a healthy relationship. It's not. Compromise, maybe. Negotiation, for sure. But self-sacrifice, putting yourself on the chopping block for the people around you who applaud you for doing it, it's not healthy for you. And it's not healthy for them, because they're falling in love with a version of you that's not real. And so I ask you, when did it become noble to abandon yourself for someone else's convenience, for someone else's definition, for someone else's dream? And I have to say, I'm concerned that when he described his wife and thought he was giving her kudos, he applauded her for putting her career and her life on hold. It's in the culture of romantic relationships, a wife giving up some part of herself for her husband, it being a time-honored tradition. Men are being taught her role as his wife, as his woman, is to support him, stand by him, push him toward his dream, and smile and wave while doing it. Maybe mothers of sons have taught their sons this by the way they've coddled them and placated them and done all the heavy lifting while he sits back and sits on the sofa or lays on the bed and does little to nothing. Maybe that's raising a generation of boys that feel like they're supposed to be served. Even the ones that say the most wonderful things about women, at their core is a sense of entitlement where they can sit and watch their wives worry and look, oh, I'm so sorry, rub her hand and do nothing. And the wives think it's okay. They take on the burden. They take on the heavy lifting. They take on a load they were never meant to carry. And I know women are strong, and I know women are resilient, and I know that we can handle multiple things at the same time. I know that, but it still does not mean we're supposed to be abused, that it's supposed to be taken for granted and give men a pass, because by default, their passivity still affirms the fact that they feel like it's okay for you to do that. That she's supposed to sacrifice, because that's what your mom did. She's supposed to do it because you're a man. And because she's so lucky that you chose her, she's supposed to do whatever it takes. And if that works for your household, more power to you. And perhaps this episode isn't one that resonates with you. But there are women out there who are suffering severe neglect and are ashamed of their suffering because society tells them that they should be someone that they are not, that their value and their worth is determined by rules that men created, that taking one for the team is expected, is applauded, and that a good woman should. But what if doing that is something you were not ever supposed to do? You weren't created to be exploited in that way. What if we've done this to ourselves and God has played no part in it? That's why I urge the people I coach to get to know themselves more intimately. The more you know, the better you are at living, loving, and prospering. And the better you are at vetting the capacity of a potential partner to you. We ask men where they see themselves in 5 years and 10 years. But I had to ask, where do you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years? Do you see yourself sad and in a corner, feeling neglected and alone? Or do you see yourself as a mogul of your own life? That you're living your life full of joy and that you're with someone who is so happy to share that with you? Then you have to look deeper at those hidden relationship beliefs and commitments that play out in your dating and in your relationships. I'm going to give you an example. If he loves you because you pay attention to him and you know that your dream is going to cut that attention 90% for you to build it and put your heart and your resources into it, then you owe it to him for him to experience you authentically. Not the you that puts her life on hold for a date, not the you that changes your schedule around and accommodates him, not the dating you. Because see, the dating you removes you from your daily life. It's not even real. And so he's falling in love with something that's not even real. You owe him to let him experience you in your real life, your natural habitat. You owe it to him. If you're not going to cut the meeting short because he's called you, then you don't need to do it while you're dating. Because if you do, you are teaching him that this is who you are. This is what you do. And if he's falling in love with you, he's falling in love with somebody who is not you at all. And that's just as unfair to him as it would be if the shoe were on the other foot. We owe it to authentic relating and authentic dating to show up honestly and not just talk about it. Because when you all, glassy-eyed with euphoria, a person can talk to you and you don't hear a thing they're saying. You're just staring into their eyes. The best teacher is to show it. There needs to be integrity between what you say and how you behave. If you have a lot of responsibility that takes you out of town, or you like it, you love to work, you love to be involved in things, you like to be where the action is, then he needs to experience that. I have to tell you, I have a friend who was a Mary Kay director, I think, when she met her husband and became a national sales director. And in the early parts of their dating, he complained because she was always going to that Mary Kay, going to a meeting, going to this, going to do that, going to do the other. And it conflicted with the times he wanted to be with her. He got all upset early in that dating and said to her, there are women out there who would love to have a man like me. And she said, you know what? I love my life. I love what I'm doing. So if that's causing you heartache and whatever, maybe you need to go find those women. I love what I do. And she didn't give it up. She kept doing it. I don't know what's happening in their relationship now, but at the time that she told me this story, she said, I don't know what's going to happen with us. I haven't heard anything from him for a long time. She said, so I don't know how he's doing. She said she looked up one day at one of the meetings or something they were having, and he was going into the room where the Mary Kay husbands were. This was before they got married. He made the adjustment. You see, in order for a man to respect your voice, your value, and your vision, you have to respect it. If you can be talked out of it, he's not going to respect it. He's not going to do it. And if you haven't listened yet, listen to the episode about owning your no. You have to respect your no before anybody else will. Right? If you don't see yourself in the lifestyle that he has, then you need to take a step back and look at it. If he complains all the time about a lifestyle that you enjoy and you're not free to live it, then you have to take a step back. Sometimes you can love a person and develop a bond with them, but find out that your lifestyles don't align. And if he doesn't have respect for your lifestyle and you don't have respect for his, and you can't see yourself in it, it's not going to last. Because that means somebody has to give up something attached to their own self-definition and their joy to be with the other. And I'm going to tell you, it will run out. It will run out. And so many times we blame men for our lack of clarity about ourselves. And we talk about all the things we gave up and all the things we did and all the sacrifices we made. That was your choice to do that. Don't blame him. And just because he might have asked did not mean you had to say yes. I know we've been raised to oblige men, but let's look at it for what it really is. It's the way we have been socialized. And that's not his fault. If you say yes to something you cannot sustain, that is not his fault. And the only way you're going to truly get clear is you have to own. You have to own it. You have to own that you betrayed your no. You have to own you betrayed your voice. You betrayed your value. You betrayed your vision. And getting mad at him for it is a waste of time because all roads lead back to you. That was a hard pill to swallow. When I was getting over my first and second divorce, that was a hard pill. I was like, and he did this, and he did that, and I did this, and I sacrificed that, and I sacrificed this. Just because he asked me to didn't mean I had to say yes. What in my definition for love required me to sacrifice, to put myself on the chopping block and become the sacrificial lamb for love? In what world is that healthy? Under what circumstances is that healthy? Right? So that's why we need to be clear. Now, the relationship I have now is so different from my first 2 marriages. When I met this husband, I was buying my own house. I was building 3 businesses, a music consulting business, an administrative and bookkeeping business, and a coaching business. When we were dating, I launched my first book, The Sound of My Life. And I didn't stop those things while we were dating. He didn't require it. In fact, he was interested in what I was doing. His definition was he loved a woman that had something that she was passionate about. He loved it. He was attracted to women like that. And even if he had a work schedule on the day that I had something, he came right after. He didn't make a big deal. He didn't showboat. He slipped in, waved at me, stood with the crowd. While I was greeting people, he was doing sweet things in the background. After they all left, he stayed and helped clean up. He was interested. He was interested in caring for me and making sure that I could do what was meaningful to me, what gave me life. And to this day, he's one of my biggest champions and supporters. He makes it easy for me to be me. He makes it easy for me to do me. So as I bring this to a close, silent suffering is not noble. Silent frustration will eventually erupt. And while you're having a whole lot of conversations about superficial stuff that's making you feel all giddy and needed, don't forget to have the meaningful conversations along the way. And trust in the final analysis, your integrity with yourself is more important than anything. And until next time, I want you to remember that you are worthy. You are worth it. You are more than enough. Bye now. You have just listened to the Enough Factor podcast with your host, Suzette Vernon. To get notified of new episodes or to dig deeper into today's topic, become a subscriber. And while you're at it, tell us how we're doing and what topics you're interested in. We appreciate your feedback and your reviews. Until next time, remember, you are worthy, you are worth it, you are enough.